Welcome to Under Two Capes. I'm Jared.
And I'm Lad.
And Lad's back.
I am.
Somehow I went back in time to the quantum realm and snapped him back. Good to have you back, sir.
You brought me back. I'm here again. It's great to be back. It's been a little while.
The last time you were on was actually the live stream we did, the 4-hour live stream, although you were a wuss and didn't last the full 4 hours.
I lasted 1 hour, okay? I think that's a more than fair amount of time to hang out with.
I guess. Well, that was a fun live stream.
But consider I wasn't actually watching the movie. I was just watching you watch the movie.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I'm surprised we had so many people watching this. And it's like at the end of it, it had 47 views, but it's at 90 now. So
that's awesome.
I'm watching the people come in and I'm like, really? You guys just want to hear me commentate on a movie I'm not even having on the screen?
Right. No, that was good.
That was a fun time. So speaking of movies, so this week's topic, I wanted to do something that we haven't really done before. We talked about our favorite superhero movies briefly, I think, but now we're going to talk about our favorite classic superhero movies. Now, what do I mean by that? Anything pre-MCU, pre-DCEU.
Yes.
In other words, before Marvel, back when superhero movies were more niche. What are our favorites?
Right.
Now, Lad, real quick, do you want to do a little like our top 5, or like you want to talk about what our number 1 favorite movies are?
Maybe we just do the number 1 or just talk about like our favorites, because honestly, I don't think I have 5, and because there really aren't as many in the back, but maybe you could do top 5. I don't have top 5.
Plus, I plan this to be more of a free flow discussion anyway, so
probably
that fits with it. So I mean, my number 1 is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Okay, yeah. Number 1.
That was like my very first superhero movie that I got the merchandise for.
Right.
I got really into that. I told you about this in our Spider-Man No Way Home review. That was like, I mean, I had seen Christopher Reeve's Superman movie. He's on my list too, but it didn't really have that much as an impact on me as the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, because also when you think about it, that movie is what made superhero movies more cool than they were back then.
Right. No, that's a really great pick. I mean, the thing is, for me, it's funny, is that I didn't really watch any, because like, I don't know, like I'm a little bit younger than you, but also I didn't really start watching movies until I was older. So like the Avengers movie in 2012 was like the first time I watched a live action movie. Okay, so that's what's going to make this a little difficult, this conversation.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Animated counts.
Okay, animated count. But the thing is, like, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of kid shows. And honestly, I grew up even when I was like a teenager, I still watched a lot of kid shows. Like, I was kind of like a bit juvenile, and I still am. But like, I never got into more mature stuff until I was a bit older. So The Avengers was like the first like live action period, not even superheroes movie I'd ever seen. So that's really when I know a lot of things. That said, I have seen some movies when I was younger, and I have now watched some older movies, so I can talk about it. But that's just to say that in terms of DC, I have not watched anything pre-DCEU. I've not actually watched I've never watched any of the...
So you've only watched Snyder movies, is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. Like, I've never actually watched the Superman movies. I've never watched, the Batman movies, the
credit card.
I watched Adam West. I love Adam West Batman, but it's, I haven't seen the theatrical movie. What's his name? Michael Keaton. I've never seen his movies. I've never seen the Christopher Nolan movies either. I've seen lots of clips of them, and from what I've seen, the Superman movies look great, and the Batman movies and everything. But
throwing a net full of nukes into the sun.
Yeah, so I can't really speak from DC too much, unfortunately. I mean, I love the classic imagery, but I was going to talk a little bit about Marvel, because I do have some favorites from the Marvel area. And I had a list pulled up so that I could remember it, but I remember as a kid watching parts of the Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 1, 2, and a little bit of 3, because I was much younger then. But it just had an impact on me because I remember seeing the Goblin transformation scene as a kid, and that really freaked me out. That was so scary.
That's just a foe for you. So
yeah, that was like, I was like, wow, this is like crazy. And Spider-Man 2 was, I really understood a lot of that movie. I watched many parts of that, and just seeing Dr. Octopus with the crazy robotic arms, just I was like obsessed with like the Transformers, but also just like robots and just mechanical arms, and I thought that was so crazy cool. And seeing Spider-Man, seeing the battles that were going on there, I just remember so many parts of that movie, and it was scary, but it was really exciting and cool. And I really love that movie, and I know it's a top favorite of many people.
it's known as like one of the best superhero movies of all time, Spider-Man 2. So you're in good company there.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because I've never actually gone back and watched the original Spider-Man trilogy. Like because I kind of grew up with, when I was a teenager with the Amazing Spider-Man. So I've never actually watched Tobey Maguire's movies. I've just remember seeing parts of them as a kid.
Well, we know what we're doing the next time we come over.
Yeah, I need to do a watch through of those movies because they're so good, and I have good memories of them as a kid.
My next favorite movie is the original X-Men 1. Because I remember going into that movie having no idea who the X-Men were, because my only superhero knowledge of that was Spider-Man at the time.
Oh, so, really?
And what's kind of funny is I showed Lad this when we finished recording one of the episodes. They had a blooper where someone in a Spider-Man suit runs out on the X-Men set.
That's funny.
So anyway, it's because you see like it's because that was my first team movie, because everyone says, oh, the Avengers was the first time you had this big team of superheroes. False. It was the X-Men.
Yeah.
Is the first movie that had multiple characters in it.
Right.
Plus, we were introduced to the wonders that was Hugh Jackman Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. No, that the original X-Men movie is really big, and it's funny. I've never actually seen the original X-Men movie. I've never seen the original X-Men trilogy, and I really don't even know much about it at all. Like, I just know Wolverine and Magneto and Xavier pretty much, but like I've never actually seen the movies. That's something I need to really go back and check it out. I've seen the younger X-Men more so than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that you really enjoy those movies.
The youngers were good, but they can't compare to the last ones. It was kind of funny about the older X-Men movies. They went from good to amazing with X-Men 2,
yeah,
and then steep decline with X-Men 3.
Right.
And you gotta love a franchise that has failed twice to bring the Dark Phoenix storyline to movie theaters.
Speaking of failing twice, I'd like to bring up my next kind of like favorite classic Marvel movie, and it's the Fantastic Four.
Okay, that's a good. Those are on my list too.
Okay, because that was something I grew up watching parts of it, because like I've never actually seen these older movies. Like I said, I grew up, right when I was starting to watch movies was when the MCU started and the DCEU started, and I really watched that mostly all those movies, and I really enjoyed them. And just as a kid of just checking out some stuff, I remember watching Fantastic Four with my parents from time to time, and just seeing like these people, the original Fantastic Four, seeing that like crazy powers was so cool, and the stretchy arm and the fire and everything. And I remember Dr. Doom being such a scary villain. It was so good, because just seeing him with the mask on, and that scene where Mr. Fantastic is in like the frozen chair, and that was like really creepy. That was so scary. And then they tried to rescue him in that final battle against him. That was scary, and it was so cool and exciting. I just had some really fond memories of that movie. I know it has it's a little campy and everything, but it was a really great movie. I remember the scene where
Stan Lee cameo, baby.
The Stan Lee cameo. I remember this. Everyone, I mean, I bet people think it's campy, but it was great. And I remember the scene where they're trying to check out things like medical status. They're like doing a medical analysis on him, and they hit the hammer on his knee, and his like knee goes flying and totally knocks something over.
Like an actual hammer, not the one they use. Yeah, I love that. My favorite is when they do an X-ray of him, and they see his like heart's made of rocks, and he goes, "How was that? How do I look? I used to smoke."
Yeah, yeah, I remember that now. Those were great moments. That was a very classic, fun.
We had Captain America being the Human Torch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember him. That was great. And the thing is, I remember the trailers for Rise of the Silver Surfer. I know the movie was a letdown to a lot of people, but the trailers, seeing that as a kid, was so hype because it seems so mysterious. Like just seeing him like all silver, floating around, like not being affected by things,
And going
dodging
through
missiles.
a train or building.
Right. It was so creepy and scary. Like so, like he was like so like perfect and just like not affected by his surroundings. Like it seemed such a dangerous threat, and I loved seeing parts of that movie as a kid. And the whole wedding they were having for the characters, those were great movies. I know they were kind of campy and a letdown compared to other things, but those were great.
The Silver Surfer part in that movie is the good part. I will give you that. The Silver Surfer part is great. It's when you bring in Galactus, when he's okay. So we got this big badass dude in a suit. Now let's just turn him into a giant space cloud.
Yeah.
Even when Norn goes into Galactus and you see like that big like Balrog like image of Galactus in the space, they didn't even show the helmet or like the horns, like the silhouette of the helmet with the horns. It's just some dude. I mean, it's not even that. So I'm like, what? Haven't you read a comic book?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this doesn't. Now, my next one is Batman 1989.
Oh yes,
because what that movie did, first off, it revitalized Batman comics because his thing was stagnating, I guess the word is, or no, stagnating.
Yeah.
And then Batman comes in and makes him more mainstream.
Right.
And this is where you had like, I think this was the first time in a movie he went, "I'm Batman."
Right. I mean, because Batman 89 was really the beginning of the Batman movie era. Because I mean, the Adam West Batman movie doesn't really count. I mean, it was a much obviously campier role and everything. Batman 89 was really the beginning of the trend we see with like who Batman is in cinema. That movie defined Batman in cinema and for the widestream audiences.
Yeah. And it was a significantly darker take. I mean, Batman openly kills in that movie. He throws people off of rooftops and he doesn't just walk away. He just stares and watches them fall.
Yeah, like no one talked about that.
I'm like, oh, geez. All right, lad, what's next for you?
Man, are you hyped for him to come back in the, Batgirl and Flash and everything like that? Like,
yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm one of those Snyder fans that will support anything DC because I like DC more. It's just obviously I want more Snyderverse, but beyond that. By the way, how about you? Are you hyped for that?
I mean, I just know of him. I know seeing parts of it. I remember seeing parts of like Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy and Batman as a kid, and it was like really weird and like I didn't.
You saw the worst one.
I mean, I remember seeing the villains and the characters, and it was kind of scary and creepy and weird.
Luchador Bane.
I don't remember any. I don't really remember much. I was too young, probably, but that's like the only thing I remember. Like some of those images and Batman and stuff, but bat nipples. But yeah, are we gonna get a Batman into the Batverse? Have Keaton, Christopher Nolan.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale, sorry, yeah, Christian Bale and Batfleck together in a movie.
Knowing DC, they'll probably end up doing that based upon how many of their comic books are based around Batman.
Right, they're gonna have to have a moment where Batfleck and Keaton meet each other, at least for a split second. I know they're gonna, it's probably gonna be like they're not gonna see each other, but they have to do it at least for a second or two.
And they're both talking about how they both kill people. Oh, throw people off rooftops? I just shoot them. Interesting.
I mean, it's really funny if you just think about it. Is that Batfleck was probably the darkest take, one of the darkest takes in BVS, but in Justice League, he is probably the most lighthearted Batman we've ever gotten in the movies. Not counting Adam West.
Which version of Justice League?
Even the Snyder Cut version, just like seeing him.
Well, yeah, he's more
like hopeful.
That's the point of the movie. That's why everyone should have waited until Justice League came out, the right Justice League, because what that establishes, this is where Snyder was doing. Superman inspires even this Dark Knight Returns version of Batman to see the light.
No, it was really, really cool.
And
So
actually, that was the original plot. So here's something. I did some research. The original Batman versus Superman movie that was canceled in the early 2000s was going to happen is Joker was going to kill everyone Batman cares about. And the crux of the Batman versus Superman fight is Batman wants to kill the Joker, and Superman is forced to say, no, no, dude, do not cross that line. You will regret it for the rest of your life. And then, and that's what the fight is. And they actually do come to blows. But that's the funny part, is that kind of they did the same thing in BVS.
You know what's interesting is that when we look at the classic movies, DC really has a bigger foothold in terms of the classic movies.
I know.
In terms of presence, because Marvel, like literally, aside from the Howard the Duck movie in the 80s, which was, aside from that movie,
I've never seen that. I want to see it.
Aside from that movie, the first Marvel movie is Blade in 1998, and then X-Men in 2000. Like basically, Marvel movies haven't started since 2000. You know, like 2000 on, and then 2008 is when we get the MCU. So like Marvel movies are like actually
a relatively new thing. Like literally only like 20, 25 years old or so. And DC has such a bigger foothold. I mean, that's something we can just mention briefly, because I pulled up the list here in terms of DC. DC has such a bigger foothold in the past, and what's funny about that is that it's reflected also in animated too, because how many famous animated Marvel movies are there?
Right. No, it's true. So many of the animated movies, you look at DC, and not counting, classic Batman movie, the first one was Superman in 1978. And, from that Superman movie all the way to 2000, you had the entire Superman film saga, and you had the Batman, Keaton saga during that time period. And that's a big deal, because you just look at that head start DC had before Marvel in terms of having an established Superman movie series and a Batman film series. That's big. And I think a lot of people know Batman and Superman specifically from those movies, because they grew up in that time period, and it affected even nowadays. But you look at what DC's done since that time period, since 2000 onwards, they haven't done as great. They've had a lot of great movies, but when Marvel started the MCU, that changed everything, when they just create that shared universe, which DC hadn't done yet in their movies, and it changed everything. And the MCU is obviously one of the biggest things right now, and the DCEU is trying to emulate that, but they haven't been able to do it. They don't have any creative lead. It's just kind of a chaotic, and they have great individual movies, but in terms of cohesion,
that could be changing.
The MCU really owns it.
That could be changing soon. But yeah, I agree with you there. And what's interesting is that even when they have the potential of something like the MCU, they sabotage it, as in the case of the Snyderverse, because there was an article that came out on Screen Rant, like when the Snyder Cut came out, and it said Zack Snyder's Justice League and the reception of it proves that if Warner had been patient after BVS and not sabotaged Snyder, they would have had their version of the MCU and probably could have. And it was kind of interesting. If they had stayed the course, the Zack Snyder part of the DCEU would have ended in 2019.
Yeah.
That's it. But luckily, this is why it's a good idea for Zaslav to restore the Snyderverse. And then we'll go back to what we're saying. Because going back to what you said, lad, the MCU kind of is struggling right now because they killed off and moved on all their important characters. So their future is up in the air. DC should capitalize on this and said, Snyderverse, let's go, dark side.
Right. No, that's a good point, that the MCU, DC obviously has been in the lead since the 80s, but the MCU really changed the entire playing field and really brought, I think really helped bring superheroes into pop culture and the mainstream audiences, where it's just a very normal thing to be into that. And DC's also helped, but the MCU's really pioneered that. The question is, with the MCU changing, with actors moving on, storylines ending, and they're bringing in new people, new characters, new directions. Will the MCU stay as popular? And that's a question we'll have to see. Just going forward, and the DC could definitely capitalize on this and actually fix their universe and just start growing again. They could definitely compete in that area. We'll have to see, can Marvel sustain its dominance? Can DC capitalize on the Marvel's a bit of weakness to pull ahead? I would be more than happy to see two great film universes just going to see great movies. It's just, will it happen? I don't know.
Most likely will. But anyway, back to what we're talking about. My next movie that I think is underrated, and it's not Fan-Four-Stick. I don't want to put that in people's mind, because A, that came out after the MCU, and B,
right.
horrible.
Right.
Is, let me see, how do I want to say this? It's real. All right, so here's what it is. It's not a Marvel or DC property, but it's a comic book and technically superheroes. The original TMNT movie.
Okay, that's fair.
Very animatronic one.
I didn't think about that.
It's as terrifying as Howard the Duck.
Dude, TMNT's creeped me out as a kid. The live action guys.
But it was kind of cool when you think about it, because they have dudes in the suit wearing an animatronic helmet.
Right. I remember seeing that also as a kid. Parts of it, the turtles were creepy. It was kind of weird. I liked it, but it was kind of weird.
Yeah, and it's really campy. Oh geez, I binged all three of them because they're on Netflix, and I'm like, oh, this did not age well.
I love it when they jump on stage and perform Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, and they start singing, "Go Ninja, go Ninja,
go Turtle." Yeah.
Yeah. Compare those to the Michael Bay ones, and what a difference.
Yeah, I actually kind of like the Michael Bay ones.
Michael Bay movies were dope, bro.
I thought they were actually pretty good. I mean, the best you could do if you want to do live action, honestly, you should really do animation for the Turtles, I think.
Yeah, I know people were complaining about the way the Turtles looked, and I'm like, what do you expect?
Right. It's like, it's not gonna be fantastic. But no, the TMNT, I forgot about those were really good, non-Marvel, non-DC movies, classic superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm. And they had their dark moments. It wasn't like full on camp, but most of it was camp.
Yeah,
but you're dealing with mutant turtles and a mouse that somehow gained the intelligence to master martial arts before he was augmented by ooze.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one part of the movie where I'm like, wait, what? Because he said the ooze increases intelligence, but before he got the ooze, he learned martial arts by copying his master. I'm like, what?
Right. That seemed like he was already pretty intelligent before the ooze or something, right?
Like what?
Yeah, like what? That's pretty funny, actually. I forgot about that. Man, I'm trying to think if there are any other. Oh, it's a great classic superhero movie that I really like.
What?
Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
Did you watch that?
Dude, I've
never watched it.
Dude, you never watched it. I was not a huge Mario fan as a kid, but I did watch part of that movie, and I didn't really know what it was. It was so weird. It was so night.
I watched the honest trailer. That's why I watched it.
Okay. So you've seen a little clip of it. Like, it's just so creepy and weird. It really freaked me out, and I don't know why it had to be like that. It was like,
here's
so
why.
Bad.
Here's why. And when I was talking to Gabe Al-Taib about this, he touched on it. It's because you have a bunch of executives in the room that show up and think they're creatives and think they can tell the creative people what to do, and they adapt these franchises. So like, do this, have Batman have a bad credit card, have Mario be like this weird plumber that fights these giant lizard people.
Yeah, it was like,
it's really stupid, but that shows you most of the camp is from these executives that aren't creative at all, don't understand the properties at all, and are telling these people that are creative how to do their job.
Yeah, exactly.
My next favorite, now this isn't comic books, but it's technically superheroes, is Halo Forward Unto Dawn.
That's a good pick.
So for those of you that don't know, in the Halo 4 time frame, they started to release like live action like miniseries that were basically prequels and like gave like certain introductions to each of the newer characters. And they would originally, and then they would officially combine them into a movie to release on DVD. Forward to Dawn was a story about this kid Thomas Lasky, who's at basically West Point in Halo, and he's training to be a soldier, but he doesn't want, because this is during the time when there was an insurrection, so he doesn't want to kill his own people. He's like,
Right.
why are we going to war with these people? Then the Covenant invades and he meets the Master Chief, and then they kick ass, and then the chief, and then he basically finds purpose. So there's that, and Lad's a novice at Halo at best. By the way, when I was watching the Halo show today, I mean the other day when they had the Spartans walking out, what flashed through my mind, there's one Spartan walking behind the Master Chief, and I go, I swear, if he melees him in the back of the head, I'm gonna be.
So that if you were Master Chief and I was that guy, you'd just be walking, and I'd be like, poof. Yeah.
And then he say, sorry, Chief, I play Nintendo. I play Nintendo Switch, and that's where the A button is.
Yeah, like that'd be so funny. That would be me, unfortunately. You know, like you'd be like, all right, you gonna be on my 6 because you don't trust me on your 6.
Because it doesn't help that whenever you're walking, you're just automatically meleeing.
Well, I get bored of just walking around, so I just go like,
But yeah, so the Halo movies were good, but they weren't. I mean, I enjoyed the show. So I think that's the closest we can get to a Halo movie. Hopefully it gets, I mean, I liked it. There were some parts I didn't like. Hopefully it gets better. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to spoil it for Lad.
Yeah.
Go on, Lad.
I got to check out. You know what? You just reminded me, since we're technically doing like heroes, you know, superheroes, the Bionicle movies.
Yeah, I'll count that.
Those are classic. Those are from our childhood.
They're superheroes.
They're superheroes. They're heroes, right?
That's what the Toa are.
Awesome. Those were great as a kid.
The Toa are basically the Justice League.
I know. Yes, the Bionicle heroes, just everyone hanging out, you know, just like they were like the original, you know, superhero league, because there were 6 of them. They were like a team. They were like the Avengers or Leaguers, you know, the Toa, and they would go around, defeat the enemy, everything like that. I mean, I remember like the first movie, Mask of Light, that was so cool with like the Makuta and like, you know, trying to find out the Matoran guy was like the 7th Toa. That was great.
Yeah, and that was another franchise I got really into. I had a bin of Bionicle action figures that I built. Those were fun because you could build a Lego model and then you could actually play with it.
Exactly. Those are great. And I remember, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lad.
No, I was gonna say that like the movie that we both probably watched a lot of more so was you know, Legends of Metru Nui, you know, the second Bionicle movie with Vakama and the rest of the team. That movie is legitimately good. I watched it more recently. It holds up, like that, you know, he's the leader and he doesn't feel like he can lead the team. Like he doesn't feel confident in himself.
He's the last to discover his mask power. By the way, fun fact, speaking of Vakama's mask, did you know there is a deleted scene in there because at one point the actor who played Vakama was actually in another movie, and he had a mustache, so they had to actually CGI the mustache.
Really? That's pretty funny.
No, I'm just joking.
No, those are good. That was a legitimately great movie where it was like seeing the Toa and like, you know, he doesn't believe in himself and the team kind of doubts him and he doesn't think he can live in Lee Khan's legacy. And then also the plot twist that, you know, Taraga Duma is actually Makuta in disguise. That was a huge plot twist. And that was fantastic. That the climax, everything, that was great. Those were great fun movies as a kid, and the toys really held up. Those were fun. They were great.
Yeah, and it's sad that Lego won't do more of them because I think that's a great franchise to capitalize, particularly in the superhero crazed like pop culture. If ever was the time to bring back Bionicle, now is the time.
Hashtag bring back Bionicle, guys. We gotta get it.
I'll add that in the episode description.
Yeah, like bring the Bionicle fans in here. It's funny that you mention it because Bionicle's been dead for many years now with no new toys or themes or anything, but their Bionicle fans rejoice because there's a bit of news that Bionicle is technically back in a new Lego set that's being released.
Wait,
It's
what?
for it's for the 90-year anniversary of Lego Company, and they have a Lego set with 15 mini models in it from all the old Lego themes like space and castle and adventures and lots of these classic themes. And they have a mini Tahu like Lego character that you can build with googly eyes, and it's supposed to be like a kid set, but technically it is a Bionicle set on a store shelf in 2022, which is
Fun fact. The
wild.
hashtag bring back Bionicle, it's a real hashtag.
Yes, that is a real thing people would spam back in the days for a long time. That was a big thing.
2 days ago, it's been used.
Yes, that was a big thing. That was a big thing.
I want more.
We need to bring it back. We need to bring Bionicle back. There's so much potential for that series. It's good stuff.
Yeah, because they were generally good. I mean, the last couple of movies weren't as good as the classic, let's face it. But
right,
I think Mask of Light, number 2, I forgot, Legends of Matanui was number 2. And what was the third one called?
Web of Shadows.
Web of Shadows. Those were the best. Those are like the holy trinity of superhero movies back then.
Yeah, Web of Shadows was also a really good follow-up to that movie, I think.
Because it's like Bionicle going through his many Darth Vader arc.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was good. I think that at that point, you know.
What did you think of the Netflix animation they did for Bionicle like couple years back?
Right.
Basically Tahu's team.
Right. That was a good. I think that was kind of cool. It was definitely not as it was nice, but it didn't really have as much soul to it like the original movies had. But it was cool. It was a cool thing that happened, you know, for a little while. Here, I'm gonna share my screen just before we move on to discussion, just to pop it up. I'm sharing the screen. Can you see this now? Look.
Yeah, I can. That is Bionicle.
This is the little Bionicle. So look, it's a classic Lego set. So this is more of like a tub of pieces. You can build whatever you want, but it has a whole bunch of classic themes like this pirates and space and.
Oh, so you mean it's a tub of parts? You can make all those with the tub.
You can make all those with the tub, but they specifically market it as a celebration of all their past themes that they came up with. So trains, houses, and all that. But the cool thing is they actually show the model it's based off of. And so Bionicle is actually featured as one of these themes. And they have this little mini Tahu character. And, you know, it's a Bionicle set on a store shelf in the present day, you know, and it's been years. So it's, you know, it's a little chibi, cute guy, but it's nice to see that Bionicle's remembered, you know?
Yeah, I know. At least they're not like ignoring it.
Yeah, because a lot of people in the Bionicle fan base feel like it's been ignored, but this is nice. It's cute and it just reminds me of good times, the Bionicle movies and everything. It's a little cute. The people on Twitter, Bionicle fans, are just making all these great memes and jokes with.
I like to call him
with him. Yeah, it's like they're making Matoro in that type and like all these like chibi characters. Like it's good. I think it's good times, you know, honestly.
It's bio-chibi, Cole.
Yeah, just make everything just really, really cool. Look here. Someone made like a really edgy poster with him, with the other Tahus.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for like a fan film that's Zack Snyder's Bionicle. Can you imagine if he did Bionicle? Yeah. I think he'd do a good job with it.
Yeah. Oh boy. So what else? What other movies do you remember from the classic? Did you ever watch Blade movies or?
I never watched Blade.
Yeah. Because
two of my guests have been on my back for not watching Blade.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, with the X-Men coming into the MCU, you know, now X-Men is the original MCU movie. You know how like Spider-Man took over from Iron Man, and now X-Men's taken over as the earliest Marvel movie. So the only thing left is unless Blade or Howard the Duck come in, X-Men's gonna have the title as the first MCU movie, you know?
Yeah. No matter what, I'm like, no, it wasn't. It's like the same thing. They were trying to say that Black Panther was the first black superhero movie, and I'm like, Blade.
Yeah, Blade was a classic.
Even I know that movie existed.
Yeah. Oh boy. What about the Daredevil movie? Like,
I saw that one.
Ben
I
Affleck.
saw that one. All right,
Yeah.
so that movie takes a lot
it.
of heat, probably because of its overuse of a CGI Daredevil, which looks god awful.
Really?
There were a couple of good things in that movie. Number one, the Evanescence soundtrack.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Evanescence, and that movie's the reason why. That's why I first heard that music. Second off, they had a fantastic Colin Farrell as Bullseye was fantastic.
Right.
There's this scene where he's on the airplane, this old lady is snoring, so he takes a peanut and flicks it, and it goes down her throat, and she dies.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, I know that like that. But yeah,
that was a classic movie.
The overall story of it is not bad. I mean, he is a horrible lawyer, though, and Honest Trailer kind of touches on this, that he's a human lie detector, but he keeps losing cases in court.
Right. People joked about the fact that Happy Hogan is in that movie. You know, John Favreau.
Yeah, it's his friend.
It is his friend. And so when when Happy says, like, I know a lawyer that can help us in, No Way Home, it'd be funny if like he brings Ben Affleck, Daredevil, instead of the other one.
And it's at night, and all of a sudden you see a bat signal, and Peter's like, "Why is there a bat in the sky?" And the Batman's like, "I gotta go."
Yeah, I gotta go.
I'm a really good lawyer.
Okay, so I'm looking through some of these other classic.
Oh, movies. I got a good one.
Yeah,
Punisher.
The Punisher
original
movie.
Punisher movie was fantastic.
Really? Because I never really heard about that at all. Like I only just now discovered this when I was looking through the list. Like I didn't even know there was a Punisher movie.
So good. It shows his origin, how he got the skull, him hunting down all of these crime people, and them failing miserably at killing him constantly. Fun fact, that was the first Marvel movie my mom and sister went to go see. They didn't know it was a Marvel property. Even though in the first, like, I'd say 10 seconds of the movie, they have the Marvel logo show up on the screen.
Right.
But yes, it is a fantastic movie. I haven't watched the sequel, but the first one is like, oh my, they nailed that character.
Right. What about the Ang Lee Hulk movie? Because we talked about that on the podcast.
We talked about that. I liked it for what it was. But okay, so Hulk was too neon green. I think we can agree on that. I even titled the episode "A Neon Green Hulk."
Right.
But I mean, it wasn't horrible. First off, my issue was that it was kind of boring. The Bruce Banner parts were boring because Eric Bana, by the way, there's another there's another for superhero franchise we are completely ignoring, but I'm going to get to that after this. But anyway, with the Eric Bana, it's because he was too depressed sounding to be. At least with Mark Ruffalo and even Edward Norton, they put more character into it, because it's like Eric Bana as the Hulk was like, well, yeah, all I feel like is this Hulk. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Then you had the Hulk dogs. But the part that I both liked and disliked was how they would have like the different camera angles as comic book panels.
Yeah, that's kind of very cool.
I see where they're going. And Mitch touched on this in that episode. It doesn't work for Hulk. It would have worked for someone like Spider-Man, which is a very dynamic character, but they picked the wrong scenes to put them in. It's in all the Bruce Banner scenes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That's not the point of this.
Yeah, that's not good. Not good.
It would have been cool if it was in the Hulk scenes. And then we have the Hulk dogs.
Yeah.
But let me put it this way: if you take it by itself, it's an interesting movie. It's not horrible, but it's not good either. It's in the meh area. Now, there's one franchise that's pre-MCU and pre-DCEU that's superheroes that I can't believe we haven't talked about yet. And that's the Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
Oh, that is right, because those were really great movies. I was actually thinking about that before. what did you watch that? You grew up with that. I never actually seen those movies. I just know of them.
All right. So
how were those? Because that redefined things.
Well, first off, that was the best depiction of Batman year one ever in Batman Begins.
Right.
And what's kind of funny is people are criticizing like a Pattinson as he's a horrible Bruce Wayne. And people say, well, he's only in year two Batman. Here's the counter to that. Bale was in year one Batman, and he established the Bruce Wayne persona. He was that playboy already. So that excuse on Pattinson, that's my only problem with the Robert Pattinson Batman is Bruce Wayne, because guess what? Don't give me the whole he's in year two. Bale was in year zero and he was still good.
Yeah.
But anyway, Batman 1, it was cool because I get what he was doing. He was trying to make it more grounded. If Batman existed now, here's what he would be like. That's where you have like the Batmobile is a tank, like literally a tank. I know we say I know we joke about the Justice League Batmobile, but this one is literally a tank.
Yeah.
In fact, even the cops, when they're chasing Batman, go, he's in a black tank.
Yeah.
And I definitely really okay. The first one was very, very, very good. Second one was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because you had the Joker in it, you had Two-Face in it. They really navigated that perilous like position that like Spider-Man 3 was in, because one of the criticisms of Spider-Man 3 was that they put too many supervillains in the movie. Like you had Sandman, the Joker, Sandman, New Goblin, and Venom. Too many. This one is just Joker and Two-Face, and they make it where Joker led to the creation of Two-Face. Fantastic. And then you have Heath Ledger as the Joker. Fantastic. It was great. Then 3 comes around, and by the way, the Batman voice progressively got more stupid. 1, it was fantastic because it's just like him being like a dark voice going, where's the trigger? Where is it? And then in 3, and then 2, where's the trigger? Where is it? I'm like, what?
And in the third one, it's funny because I always quoted it from you, but I actually watched the scene where he's talking with Bane in the third movie. He's like, where's the trigger? Where is it?
And then you have this badass villain Bane, and then he just gets shot by Catwoman, and that's how he dies.
Yeah. I thought I saw the fight scene where he like breaks his back. Like that looked pretty intense when he actually like really ones up Batman in that
That's
full
the
fight.
comic. That's
that
the
was
comic,
good.
bro.
That was a good fight scene. You know,
what's hilarious is that
some good stuff.
3 was combining 2 Batman storylines: Dark Knight Returns, because Batman comes out of retirement, and then you have Nightfall with the back breaking.
Yes.
Then maybe a little bit. It reflects a more modern story of Batman called City of Bane, where Bane takes over Gotham. But beyond that, my problems with 3 is that, number 1, they destroyed Talia al Ghul. I've mentioned this many times. She's not supposed to completely hate Bruce Wayne, because if she hates Bruce Wayne, then Damian Wayne does not exist. She wanted to have a child with Bruce Wayne. In fact, she loves Bruce Wayne. It's a position of tension between her and her father, because remember, her father wants to like destroy Gotham. And this is the part that Batman Begins got fantastically, was their depiction of Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. And
my problem with it, in the movie, they make it so she wants to kill him.
Right.
I don't want, as a comic book fan, that grates on my soul. Bane, they take away everything that makes him Bane and just make him a roided out dude that just wants to kill Batman for jokes and giggles.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you take the movies without the comic book, in other words, if you ignore the comic book like basis of this movie, they are some of the best superhero movies of all time.
Right.
Besides the Batman voice. Fantastic. Plus, we have one of the best versions of Alfred ever, is like Michael Caine, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. And then you had Jim Gordon. I liked Hathaway as Catwoman, but I mean, I'm indifferent about. I was actually, when I think about it, I'm not really a big fan of Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. I think she was too like, she didn't because the thing about Catwoman is that she's also very sarcastic, and the other person didn't really get that.
Yeah, I felt a little bit of that when
It's
I
a
saw like
weird
a little bit.
casting.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was more just like Anne Hathaway in the movie as opposed to like Catwoman in the movie.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, besides that, that's my assessment of the movies. Do I love Christian Bale's Batman? Yeah, pretty much. Do I like him as much as Ben Affleck? No, no,
Wow.
no, absolutely not.
Even though Batfleck's only in 2 movies, neither of which are his.
Actually, he's in 3 movies. Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad doesn't count, Jared.
Well, actually, technically, BVS is a Batman movie, dude.
It's a
major. Let me put it this way: it's a major Batman movie that has a little bit.
It's
of
like
Superman.
also a Superman movie.
Also, but not that much.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but he's great, and I want him to get his own series on HBO Max. We could see him fight Deathstroke because that was the plan.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But anyway, so all right, lad, what you got next?
I was gonna ask you about the Green Lantern movie because I remember seeing parts of that.
Oh, here we go.
Because that is a DC movie, and I remember seeing parts of that. What did you think of that?
I actually watched it again recently, and I will tell you, it's not a bad movie. Personally, I enjoy it. The CGI is bad. Yes, I will agree with you on that. But the story-wise, I actually enjoy a lot because they capture. Ryan Reynolds is good as Hal Jordan, although Wes had a better idea. They should have cast Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan. In fact, he's even done him in animation, so he has the voice and everything. But in terms of its depiction of like Hal Jordan and his origin story and all that, I enjoyed it. I felt it was a pretty decent movie, even if the CGI is bad. And fun fact, that was supposed to start the DCEU.
Right.
That's the funny part when you think about if only that movie had done better. But recently, it was kind of funny. Last week we got to look at Jon Stewart as a Green Lantern for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it looks way better.
It looks fantastic.
And chief reason why, guess what? He doesn't have a face mask.
Yep.
Because that's one of the problems that the Green Lantern movie ran into, is that so Hal Jordan wore the face mask, and it just looks, you can tell immediately when like something on someone's face is CGI.
Yep. I gotta go for 1 second. I'll be back in 1 second. Just carry on without me.
Okay. So anyway, so that's my point about the Green Lantern. But when you look at the movie, it did actually capture a lot of Green Lantern, because it deals with him having to overcome great fear, because he says, Green Lanterns are supposed to be afraid. That's in the job description. But Carol Ferris, soon to be Star Sapphire, said, well, actually, when you think about it, it didn't actually mean that. Actually, what it really was talking about is that you have to have the ability to overcome fear. You need courage. And that's what Green Lantern is, because Hal Jordan, and Wes talked about this, Hal Jordan demonstrates courage every time he gets he gets into a fighter jet.
Right.
That's why it's so good. But anyway, lad, I wanted to actually. Did you have any more movies you want to talk about?
No. There was just double checking. No, that's pretty much it. I think that we covered pretty much all the classic movies.
So I have one thing I want to talk about here, and it's related to this. So recently I was in a debate, and someone said that superhero movies have to be marketable first to kids. In other words, you can't make a dark superhero movie. Do you think that's true? What are your thoughts on that? Because I understand, and this is why I wanted to ask you. You're into more of the lighthearted superhero movies.
Right. No, that's true. That's a good question, because honestly, it's a little bit mixed, right? Because we've seen a lot of superhero movies aimed at children, or at least marketable for children. But if anything, we've seen established that like superhero movies really do well with like a teenage and young adult audience. And honestly, like even an adult audience really enjoys these superhero films. And we're seeing a lot of like, not just, we've seen a lot of R-rated films lately, especially from DC, been putting out a lot of R-rated superhero films like Joker and you know, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I think some of the other ones also. Even just the PG-13 movies have been really mature, like a lot of mature themes in the Marvel movies, but they also managed to make it appeal to younger people as well. But it's funny because a lot of the media you put out, a lot of these superhero films are really aimed at teenage to young adult audience, I would say.
Yeah, and here's what I actually said is that when you make movies that are very marketable toward kids, that's what you get a Batman Forever with the back credit card. In other words, here's the problem. And the person I was debating, and this was over a Zack Snyder, this is over the Snyderverse and it being dark.
Yeah.
And one of the points that they said is that one of their favorite superhero movies is Superman 78. And I said that was great for back then. The problem is that general movie going audiences are not interested in that anymore. It's not relevant anymore. That's why the MCU movies went so dark. Mm-hmm. And guess what? They cleaned up. And plus, here's the thing. Do you really think that a parent is not going to take their kid to see Zack Snyder's Justice League? We've seen parents take babies into horror movies. Do you really think that the R rating is going to stop them?
Right. No, I think a lot of the superhero films do also a good job of balancing the tone so you can make it appealing to younger people. But I wouldn't really say that superhero films are aimed at children anymore. I think that kids they make it so the movies can appeal to children, but they definitely, I feel like some of the core demographic is teenagers to young adults even. Especially we've seen from the Marvel and DC as of late. I think they do a good job on television though of marketing towards younger people.
Yeah, and it's also because here's the thing. Once again, all the worst superhero movies ever, they were clearly marketed toward kids. So really,
yeah,
you can't make that your primary audience because guess what? First off, it's not going to work. That's the reason why superhero movies struggled so much before they went dark.
Right.
And plus the fact it's just not relevant anymore. That's the thing about like Snyderverse or the MCU. They made these characters relevant by making them more mature. Because let me put it this way, it's very hard to make like a guy who walks around in a bat suit no. It's very hard to make a dude that wears spandex draped in the American flag. Very hard to make that look cool. In fact, they almost didn't. I'm still angry at Joss Whedon for among other things, allowing the Captain America Avengers 1 suit to happen. Yeah. But besides that, it's because when you think about a superhero, it does kind of look kind of dumb because the dude walked around in spandex.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, let me put it this way. Everyone loves the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. Have you any idea how dark those movies really are?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you even said about the Green Goblin. That scene scared me too, where he like emerges and he goes back to formula and he throws that guy through the window.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, you can't do that. That first off, limit you have to be able to advertise to the broadest audience possible. And that's why you can't do kids.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
Plus the fact, again, and lad, there's a reason why they haven't done another Adam West Batman thing short of the comics. It's because it's not relevant anymore.
You can like
Adam West Batman. That's true. I'm not saying it's bad or anything like that. I'm just saying why they haven't done that. Look at those lad's eyes.
Listen, pal.
Listen, Sonny. To the Batmobile.
But it's funny because you mentioned it, but like the Batman 66 series, yes, it was campy, but it wasn't like campy. It tried to be campy. Whereas like stuff like, the back credit card and some of these other movies we talked about, where they tried to make it like a cool live action movie, but then appeal to children. And then they just didn't make the plot well, that it seemed really campy and stuff like that. And it, the Batman 66 series purposely did what it did with that intention of being campy, being over the top, but having like, interesting themes, having interesting characters, good morals, and cool action fight. But they specifically plan to do that, as opposed to other movies where they're trying to be serious and market the kid, but then they just come out campy and look stupid. So I give Batman 66 a little bit of credit in that regard.
Yeah, I'll give it that credit. Plus, here's another thing to look at. And people always point to, look at how uplifting Wonder Woman was. She was in World War One. She walked through a village that was gassed. Yeah, and not the whole movie was not all dark. Just like the whole Batman versus Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League was not all, or any Zack Snyder DC movie was not all dark. It just looked like that because guess what? People complained about Superman not grinning all the time like an idiot. Or them killing Jimmy Olsen. But it's kind of funny. I saw this great meme where it's like Batman makes a mistake in the Batman movie, the Robert Reeves, and the Matt Reeves Batman movie, and like this meme that says, okay, so it's okay that Batman makes a mistake because he's learning, it's his first time. And then right below it is Superman makes a mistake, but by fighting like Zod Metropolis. It's like Superman makes a mistake in Man of Steel, and then all the anti-Snyder fans is the Squidward meme where his eyes open up and it's bloodshot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's my problem. That there's a lot of there's also a lot of like inconsistency in this conversation, because really when you think about it, a lot of people's favorite, and people even point to, there are people that said that like the Batman Begins movie wasn't as dark as Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm like, we see the Waynes get shot. Scarecrow gasses a city and we see all their fears.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? If you don't like Zack Snyder, you don't like Zack Snyder. That's fine. You can say that. But don't make an argument that's false. But anyway, I'll give off my soapbox. Lad, thoughts?
No, I no, it's a good point that you bring up. It's just I think sometimes you kind of look at things a little differently now. Looking at, I don't think Man of Steel is that dark compared to some other movies we've seen lately. I think maybe it was just ahead of its time. That I think I look back at Man of Steel and I really enjoyed that movie for the tone, that giving Superman faults, giving that personality to him, and because that movie was gonna show how he changes as a person, how he becomes like the man we know, like Golden Boy Superman. But it's kind of said we never got to really see that in his own movies. We did get to at least see that journey through BVS and Zack Snyder's Justice League. We got to see that storyline, but it would have been great to see that like in more Superman films.
Yeah, and according to Snyder, that was the plan of his movies. He was going to get Superman to that, like fully to that point. I mean, for the most part, he is at that point at the end of Justice League. But he was going to get him even more to that point of the Superman that we all know and love.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Lad, now let me ask you this. To reiterate, or if you want to pick another one, what's your all-time favorite non-MCU, non-DCEU superhero movie? I got mine.
Ooh, all-time favorite, best one. That is very tough.
Here's a stipulation. It can be a movie that came out during the MCU. It just can't take place in the MCU or DCEU.
Oh, okay. All-time favorite, even some of those more modern ones.
Because I got one.
I really enjoyed, I'll put a classic one and a bit of a newer one, but just not in the universe. In terms of classic, I really enjoyed oh man, it's very tough, but I think I'm gonna go for Fantastic Four. Honestly, like I really love the Spider-Man 2 and great. I remember so many parts from that, but I really enjoyed Fantastic Four just as a kid. I remember checking out. I love that so much. I think I like now Spider-Man 2 better, but just I know when I was younger, Fantastic Four, that was what stuck out to me. I really enjoyed that so much. And in terms of modern series stuff, I really enjoyed the X-Men movie. Which one is it? Days of Future Past / Apocalypse. I really enjoyed both of those movies. So like in terms of, I really enjoy. I know a lot of people hate Apocalypse. I never understood really the hate for it because I really enjoyed that movie so much.
I didn't even know there was hate for it. I love that movie.
No, people like really hate Apocalypse, Age of Apocalypse. I didn't know that, but people do. But yeah, those are like my favorite series movies, I guess.
Mine are X-Men: Days of Future Past, Logan.
Oh yeah,
because it's Wolverine R-rated.
Yeah.
And okay, Deadpool, both of them, because they're both equally as good, I think. And my last actually I have two more. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Oh, I forgot. Okay.
One, maybe two. I'm kind of iffy on two. But and then Andrew Garfield and then Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Okay.
That's it. Because I like Andrew because Andrew is the most comic book accurate, I think, in terms of first with Gwen Stacy, mechanical web shooters. And I just love that scene in No Way Home where Toby fires the web and then Andrew is staring at his hand like, how did you do that?
Yes, that was so good. I gotta revise into it that like the Andrew, like in my list of favorite, because I forgot that that's not in the series. The Amazing Spider-Man movies are probably my favorite like non-MCU, non-DC thing, like top in terms of the pyramid. Like as a kid, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man 2 stuff I enjoyed, but for me now, like growing up, Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man is my favorite non MCU movies. Like just so fantastic, so great. So I love that portrayal. I grew up with it, just seeing Andrew Garfield. I love the first one. I love the second one also, even though it has its faults. I just both of them together. I will love that series.
Two had a better suit.
I just love like the setting, the aesthetic, the characters, Gwen, Spidey, Harry Osborn. I know he was really creepy and like not good as Goblin, but I thought as Harry Osborn, no, please don't. I loved him as Harry Osborn and his relationship with Peter.
Yeah, actually, he was a good Harry Osborn. I'll give you that.
Yeah, Dean was really good.
My favorite scene from the first Andrew one is where he first fights that mugger and the mugger pulls a knife and he goes, "Oh no, you know my weakness, sharp objects, web."
Yeah. Right. I loved how
he got the spider quips.
Yes, I loved how funny he was and like playing around and like how real the world felt. Like I thought saw a movie, it felt so real. Like it's as if Spider-Man, what he would really look like if he was in the real world. Like they really tried not to make it campy, try to make it serious, scientific, and everything. I really love that. I want to make Amazing Spider-Man 3 happen. # make Amazing Spider-Man 3 happen.
Yes, please.
Those movies, and I also really enjoy, Days of Future Past and Apocalypse in terms of, just, Marvel movies, but just like Amazing Spider-Man is definitely at the top all time for me, non-MCU, non-DCEU movies.
Yeah, I agree with you because those are like, see, here's the thing. I think like the first 3/4 of Amazing Spider-Man 2 is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just when you get to that last battle, actually the Electro part I hate. Seeing now, I'm so glad they redeemed Electro.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, thank you.
He was so much cooler.
He was so much cool in this one. So one more thing I want to say before we log off, Vlad, and I know I talked about this beforehand, but I just want to ask you again. How did it feel seeing Andrew Garfield return as Spider-Man in No Way Home?
That was so crazy because it really felt like it felt like it was going to happen, but he kept denying that he was the werewolf. He wasn't going to be in it, but
that's fake, bro.
Seeing him come back in that shot when, right after Aunt May died, that was so traumatic and sad. And then they just like, find Peter Parker, and then like the portal opens, and I remember being at the theater. We saw like opening day, you and me, and when Tyler, and it just seeing the background, it's like, oh look, Spider-Man, and then it was like, wait a second, all of a sudden the crowd is going insane.
The crowd's like, and then he comes through.
It
And
looks
then, wait a
different,
second.
and
It exploded when the mask came off because they could have just had the CG form of him in there.
Right. He runs towards the camera, and it's like, it's like, no way. He jumps in. It's like, oh, the crowd goes insane. And then it's like, what? And then he just like, he's kind of like, and it's just seeing him, just again in the Spider-Man suit, but also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, crossing over like all three Spider-Man together was just insane. I just was so happy seeing his character journey. And
it seems that Marvel has a trick. Whenever they want to do a fantastic reveal or like an epic scene, they just use portals.
Use the portals. They always work. And I love that. It felt like we definitely got robbed for the Amazing Spider-Man 3 and like the Spider-Man universe they were gonna build out with the villains and everything. But they actually give us a little bit of a storyline in this, kind of like tease what he's been up to, where, he, at the end of the movie of 2 made it seem like everything was good and happy again, but they actually played it up and said that like, I became, he didn't really trust himself. He regretted, he blamed himself for what happened. He never moved on to try to meet other people. He didn't really have any friends. He became more brutal, kind of like more like Batman, like darker, like he stopped pulling his punches. He just that kind of like, he fell into such a dark pit, and that really kind of gives some cool like, oh, I love to see how that looked like or just if they flash back to that in some other movie, but just like kind of playing up such a cool concept. And
his quips, he still quits, like when Tobey Maguire comes through, which I'm going to talk about that in a second, and he goes, so you're going to go into battle as like a cool youth pastor? And I'm like, yes, he said it.
And seeing him, like, just so great seeing him with other people. And I just loved his character, and I think he's still young enough. It is still possible for him to do a Spider-Man 3. Like, I would love to see a Spider-Man 3. It would be very tough. I don't know. But you just never say never, right?
Snyder cut, bro. Never say never.
Exactly.
But anyway, going back to what you said before, once again, he proved a Jared prediction right. Didn't I tell you that in that scene in the trailer where MJ is falling, he is gonna save her?
Yes, yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I saw a picture like the other day. I think I sent this to you. I might not have, but it's Spider-Man on the FaceTime call where he basically goes on J. Jonah Jameson's InfoWars and basically says, hey, I'm here at the Statue of Liberty. He says this is a place that's known for second chances.
Mm-hmm.
That puts the Andrew Garfield thing like right there.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's this other meme of like the Force ghost of Gwen Stacy hugging him.
That's funny.
Yeah, but how great would it be if they did a Spider-Verse movie? That's his movie, Spider-Verse, and then he sees Spider-Gwen.
Yeah,
and it's still Emma Stone.
They could definitely do something. There's a lot of things up in the air, but I'll still hold out hope that we can see him again. It's just great seeing him in this. Seeing his role, and also that we got to see that closure where he saves MJ. Seeing that he was able to stop Tom Holland from going down that dark path that he went down, really redeemed him. And I feel like he kind of like forgives himself now for what happened. He doesn't blame himself anymore that he couldn't save Gwen. And so that's great. But what did Tobey Maguire coming back mean to you? Because you knew those movies better than I did.
Once Andrew tore off the mask, I was like, okay, Toby's coming back. Because the minute that happens, I'm like, okay. I knew from the minute Daredevil shows up, because I'm like, okay, if Daredevil is showing up, there's no way these other two. So the portal opens and then he comes through, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, they freaking did it. It's that Jurassic World meme where that was like coincidentally same thing for the Snyder Cut, where it goes, that SOB did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, to see him again, because remember, the last time he played Spider-Man was like early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then to see, and then to have those childhood memories come resurging when he shows back up.
Mm-hmm.
It was like one of the, because remember, that was my first superhero movie that the first franchise that I really got into. That was my introduction to Spider-Man. I had no previous exposure to the character, because remember, I wasn't a comic book reader back then.
Right.
Then my favorite scene in the movie is when they're all three of them are swinging together.
Yeah.
And I know we saw Spider-Verse. We know what multiple Spider people looks like. But to see these three together,
right,
live action, swinging together. Let me ask you this. How did that scene feel to you, lad?
It was incredible. Just like seeing three established characters that, you know, they were reboots of each other, right? You know, like Andrew Garfield rebooted Toby, Tom rebooted Andrew, and it just felt like distinct franchises. You know, they just move on and they forget about the past, right? But to actually see them create a story where you could bring everyone together and make it that like, oh, these aren't just reboots of each other, but these are actually like a shared universe now that they all exist in and they can interact. That was incredible. And just seeing that moment of just crossing over three established characters of the same character together is incredible. And just something we've never seen like in cinema before. You know, like this is definitely the first time it's like ever been done like in like a theatrical movie where they do such a big thing like this. And I think it's definitely sets a standard that could almost never be broken by any other franchise, unless you just, you know, it'd be really hard to top a moment like that where you bring in characters that were meant to be reboots of each other and actually make them a shared universe. That's like incredible.
Oh, it's also kind of funny is that I remember I was sitting next to Lad when we saw the movie, and then when Andrew puts his hand on the pipe, he's like, oh, and then I was like, go ahead, Lad.
No, yeah.
And then I went when the three Spider-Men leap at the Sinister, like three basically, because I'm like, okay, that was right. And they just edited it out, and then you see, and then
the lizard, like
you and I were both watching Lizard because we see him go, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that we just like we're so invested in all the leaks and things that came up beforehand. You know, like is Andrew Garfield was the 8K leak of Andrew Garfield on the film set, and it's like that is so like real looking. It can't be a fake, you know. And then just seeing him saying like it looked like it said like you have web blood, and you know, or like you have web block is what he said when he like was talking about it, and then he like put his hand on the pipe. I was like, no way, it's actually like, and then they actually like cut to Toby and they cut back to him. He's like, whoa, so you have like web block? They literally did the exact same
scene. It's the scene.
And I was like, okay, that was incredible seeing that. But here's the theory thing. Seeing that it's like exactly the same scene from what we saw in the movie. Here's like, you know, the theory thing. Did Sony purposely leak this information to hype up that Andrew Garfield's in the movie, that they would bring these Spider-Man back? Because they obviously didn't want to officially say it and spoil it, but they have to market, you know, the fact, hey, we're going to bring back these superhero characters and get people excited at the possibility. So here's the question, you know, like conspiracy theory. Did Sony themselves leak that scene using like a random user online? I forget where it even came from. Because that will actually look like it was from the real camera, because it was the exact scene we saw in the movie, not from like a different angle, someone using their phone.
Yeah, it wasn't like someone doing that.
Right. It was taken from the film reel. So unless someone stole it from the film reel and uploaded it, then that Sony could have themselves uploaded to generate hype. Because look, that leak and like the leaks that Andrew could be in it generated so much hype for the movie.
Three of them standing together.
Yeah.
That I think like one of the like film YouTubers leaked. So yeah,
John Campino.
I'm 100% sure that was like intentional, because Sony's the type of studio that would do that.
Right.
We know, much to Feige's chagrin, and there's
I know
Feige with a sniper rifle.
Yeah,
watching
Feige.
That dude.
Yeah, Feige always going around with a sniper rifle. Does not like when people do that. No, exactly. I kind of think that they may have leaked it on purpose to hype up the movie. I bet there could be more investigation into that.
Maybe they also leaked that trailer that had the lizard's head go.
Right, the lizard head thing also
on YouTube. there's a clip where it's someone like watching that part from the trailer, and then as Lizard's head does this, they start playing the Bigfoot music that plays in all these Bigfoot spotting clips.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but yeah, because it's like immediately when I saw that, I was like, okay, they're in here.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that was like the most like obvious thing you can do, because at that point you're like, okay, they just photoshopped them out.
Yeah. Nope. That was so good. No, that was great.
And it was also cool to see the actual villains. Like Norman Osborn says, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Yeah. Now, my question is, what do we do? You know, it's so cool that we're starting to cross over like other film universes, right? You know, like the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies, possibly Fantastic Four movie crossing over. What happens when we run out? Because when we talked about the classic movies, there really aren't that many classic Marvel movies, you know, and even for DC, there's a lot, but there's still not a ton. You know, we've had so many movies come out recently in the shared universe. There's only so many characters they can use until they run out, you know, because like aside from the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and the Spider-Man universe, that takes up most of the pre-MCU stuff. You know, except for the few odd characters here and there, that's almost all the pre-MCU, you know?
That's true. That's honestly a really good question. What happens when they run out of a franchise to cross over? I think that'll be the defining point, but what's interesting is it's like, that's my problem with Marvel now, is because what Marvel's doing right now, and I understand why they're doing it, is that they're trying to like highlight more of the lesser known characters like Shang-Chi, Ms. Marvel, and such. But what they don't realize that, and once again, I said this on a live stream with Max MVP Priestley, because the topic of that was, how do you bring in new characters and get them like in the public consciousness? And I said, what they should have done is introduce these characters in team movies, like have them like help the Avengers, and then you can like put in like the seeds of their backstories instead of just giving them one thing. Because guess what? Shang-Chi didn't do as well as they thought it would, because guess what? It did what you typically think a Marvel movie would make, but it didn't do like Endgame level numbers. Anyone that tells you that is lying. Mm-hmm. None of these movies since Endgame have gotten to that epic point, because Endgame is like was for a while the highest grossing movie of all time,
right?
Ever.
And the thing is, here's the thing I don't know, and I'm very curious. Post Endgame, you know, Endgame really wrapped up the Infinity Saga, wrapped up a lot of character storyline, and really moved us on into new characters. Can the MCU still be successful with, you know, people growing older and moving on to new things after a certain point, the characters changing, you know, new actors, getting rid of the old actors, and also can they stay relevant? Will they still be successful movies? But the hard part in determining that is COVID hit right after the MCU had the Endgame and everything. So a lot of these phase 4 movies have been affected by the pandemic, you know, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals.
Plus,
they all made about
$400 million. Thing kind of screwed with it.
The what?
The releasing it on Disney Plus the same day as the movie kind of screwed with it.
Yeah, that definitely messed it up also. They all made around 400 million, which is okay, but not regular Marvel numbers. Thing is, a lot of the other movies during that time period really were not successful at all. Really hard to make money. So I think it could just be the pandemic that really affected those numbers, but it's hard to know for sure if maybe, you know, people moving on, people changing the MCU affected that. The thing is, Spider-Man,
I was about to bring that up.
Combination of bringing back all the old villains and old superheroes and being Spider-Man, and also it was right about when the pandemic had slowed down. You know, starting to pick up.
They didn't release on Disney Plus at the exact same time.
That's right. It was kind of like right right around when, COVID was starting to hit with Omicron spike, but it was right before it. And just all those things combined together, somehow it's made like almost $1.9 billion. Like, it's
Yeah.
the sixth highest grossing movie
And
of all time.
it's the highest grossing Sony movie of all time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's beat out Avengers.
That's what I'm gonna say. The
Endgame,
next Marvel movie,
Ultron.
sorry, go ahead. The next Marvel movie had better do well, because guess what? Now they can't use that excuse, because guess what? Spider-Man completely destroyed the movie theater.
Right. Now my question is, was that just because of Spider-Man? Was it just because of that? Will our movies still going to be affected by the pandemic-like numbers, or should things be back to normal? Will the next Marvel movies do well? Will it be a pandemic? Will it be Marvel fatigue? What's going to happen? I think
it's also Marvel fatigue, because a lot of people after Endgame were like, okay, I'm done. Because a lot of people stayed with the MCU because they wanted to see how it was going to end. Mm-hmm. And people are taking Endgame as the end of the MCU, because really it is. If you want to just stop there, that's it. You're done. Also, here's the mistake of if I were Marvel, after Endgame, I would immediately looked at who are top characters that aren't Captain America or Iron Man, Black Widow, and such, and done them. Not gone. Okay, Shang-Chi and Ms. Marvel. No.
Take it back.
Take it back. Exactly. We don't want to.
No, you take it back. They should keep it there.
I'm not taking it back because guess what? You want people to start making you want people to come to your movies. And I got news for you. I would be very interested to see the viewership for Ms. Marvel, because her comic book sales tank all the time. Yeah. Hence, she was canceled 4 times. And by the way, you can say, well, Captain Marvel did well pre-pandemic, but guess what? Captain Marvel was marketed as you had to watch it in order to understand what was happening with Endgame. Guess what? You could have skipped it.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done.
That was a lie.
The only thing you possibly got an idea of was where Nick Fury got the Avengers and where he got his eye thing, which was stupid.
Which was great.
What were you going to say, lad?
I was going to say that, I don't know. I mean, like, the thing was with the MCU expanding with the limited series, kind of like cinematic TV shows, right? With Falcon, Winter Soldier, Loki, all these other things. Is that building up the hype, build up the fan base even more? I feel like it's hard to attract new audiences with the TV shows. I feel like it's more for like established audiences.
But
right,
you get the people, because it's cheaper to watch something on Disney Plus than it is to go to the movie theaters.
That's true.
And here's why that's good. Because what they should have done is make Shang-Chi a series instead of a movie first. That way you see if there's any interest in these characters. And here's the good part. Series do build I think would be better if Marvel took a break from the movies and did the TV series, because what they do is that you build up you get people talking about the MCU again, but in a shorter time frame than you did because remember, when the MCU was first getting started, there were no TV shows for the MCU. Now that there is, you can shortcut that whole discussion that took us a couple of years to start.
That's true.
Because if they're coming out weekly, people start talking about how is this going to affect Marvel? How is this going to affect the world? That's why I think Marvel should just say, okay, we're stopping the movies. We're just going to do TV series for the next, a little bit. That's what I think they should do after Doctor Strange. They should make Doctor Strange the point where everything stops, and then they just do TV series to establish this new world. Because conceivably, I think the MCU is going to use Doctor Strange as an actual reboot.
Oh, maybe. I think Doctor Strange will just. I think that I like to support the MCU, and I feel like it could be that things have been moving in a more magical direction as opposed to having grounded heroes, make everything being a comedy. And I wish it would go back to some more serious movies, less just magic everything. But I think that the MCU can still be successful. And I think the TV shows, where they're introducing new characters through the TV shows and having characters we've had around for a while, give them TV shows, Falcon, Wanda, Loki, Hawkeye, great stuff for all of them. I think it can really grow. And it was a little slow last year with some of the new movies. But I think this year is going to be really incredible, because we're getting Doctor Strange, the movies for this year, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, and Black Panther 2. no new characters. We're gonna get established characters, give them sequels.
Technically, a new character, Black Panther.
Technically new characters, right? Doctor Strange will be cool and everything. I think Thor is really popular. I mean, because Thor 4 is really just Thor Ragnarok 2.
That's really what it is.
Thor Ragnarok was not the third movie in the trilogy. It was the start of a new series. Okay.
They rebooted it. Some will say for the worst because they made Thor a joke, which he's actually not that in the comics. I get what Taika did, and I enjoyed it as a
right.
Take away the comic book Thor part again. Fantastic movie. Put it in, horrible.
Yeah, it's a thing because I actually kind of like the original Thor movies. But thing is, I do admit that it's a bit hard for them to be memorable a little bit. Like, I kind of forget what happened in Thor 2. But I kind of like that tone. That said, Thor Ragnarok was the absolute funniest, great. I love the action. I love the jokes movie of all time. Like, our movie was so great, but it completely destroyed Thor as a kind of a character, destroyed his mythos, destroyed what built up before it, and kind of really... really changed the franchise. I loved it. Did it destroy the
I felt he was
franchise?
good.
Yeah.
He was a good mix of comedy and seriousness in Avengers Infinity War.
Yes.
That was, I think, was the best Thor has been. Endgame,
I agree.
I enjoyed Fat Thor, but I wasn't a big fan. He was too much of a joke in that one.
Right. No,
Infinity War was the gold standard.
Right. That's the one thing I kind of noticed is that when they went to Infinity War, they had to kind of go back to making Thor a bit serious and a bit who he was in the original Thor movies and in the Avengers movies, and him fighting against Thanos, he has to be a bit serious. So it was weird seeing his tone in Ragnarok be all, funny and everything. And then in Infinity War, he was noticeably more serious, but had hints of that comedic side to him because they kind of had to focus more on his serious side for Infinity War, right? Because he lost everything, lost his brother.
And honestly, that's what the MCU should be instead of this massive joke fest.
Right. I mean, the joke fest MCU all started with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Guardians of the Galaxy changed everything for Marvel movies, but just movies, period. The Guardians of the Galaxy literally affected Marvel, DC, all superhero films.
Because after that, everyone's like, every superhero movie has to be a comedy.
Right. You think of the Suicide Squad and
Justice League.
Yeah. It just every Guardians of the Galaxy literally scarred the Thor Ragnarok. What other movies some of the
Avengers
Spider-Man movies,
2. Even Iron Man
Captain
1.
Marvel,
Iron Man 1 had comedy, but it also had very dark moments.
Right. I'd like to see a bit more of that. Winter Soldier was amazing, and it had funny moments, but it was not a comedy. It was a very serious movie. I
Let me
like
put it
that.
this way. Take Zack Snyder's Justice League. Say what you will about Zack Snyder being a dark movie, but there were some very funny parts in that movie.
Yeah.
Where Barry Allen is handing his security card, his card to the guard. He goes, aye.
Yeah.
There were some legitimate funny parts in that movie, but it took itself seriously too. That's what the MCU is missing. That's why I love the DCEU more than the MCU, and I have since the very beginning, because the MCU became too much of a joke. Too much.
Yeah, that's true. That is
having
really
jokes
point.
is important, but you can't go that far to the extreme.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point to bring up, that a lot of movies were really affected by that tone with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? In Ant-Man, Thor Ragnarok, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, even a little bit, just a lot
Spider-Man is understandable because that is legitimately the character. The problem with the MCU is that they changed characters to make them a joke, a la Thor.
Yeah. I'd like to see a few more serious Marvel films, but make it fun still. And I do love complete comedy joke fest, like Thor 4 is going to be hilarious, I imagine. But I'd like to see some more serious movies as well, but we'll see,
We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Well, if you want to see a serious movie, there's Matt Reeves the Batman.
And
But-
that said, thank you for watching us today, guys.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, we'll call it an episode for this one, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Lad, it was fantastic having you back on the show.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great being back. It was great discussion.
And by the way, comment below what your favorite classic pre-MCU, pre-DCEU superhero movie is. We'd love to hear about it. We may even respond. And also, are we on point about the MCU being too much of a joke fest, or is it the way superhero movies should be? Because what I think about, one more thing I'll say is that superhero movies now, the MCU reflects the like silver age of comics, a la Superman carrying a planet, carrying a solar system on a chain, that type of jokiness, or like the bad credit card. But anyway, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this this episode of Under Two Capes, and we will see you next week. All right, everyone, stay heroic. Bye-bye.
See ya.